Thank you. The gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Raskin, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Before I get into FARA, I think that fairness compels me to answer my friend Mr. Johnson's amazing drive-by slam on Judge Jackson for stating the obvious, that she will enforce the Constitution and the Bill of Rights as written and not invent whatever rights she wants under the rubric of natural rights or natural law, two phrases which do not appear in our Constitution or in federal law. Other than Justice Thomas, who ended up having to backtrack from this position, I'm not aware of a single Supreme Court justice who thinks that a judge's personal interpretation of natural rights or natural law should inform his or her interpretation of the Constitution of the United States. And it was, in fact, the great conservative hero, Robert Bork, who vehemently opposed this idea of even trying to import natural law or natural rights through 14th Amendment due process or through the 9th Amendment. So I think Mr. Johnson may owe Judge Jackson an apology for what he's just said. We put justice on the Supreme Court to enforce the Constitution of the United States and the laws of the land, not their own airy notions of natural law or natural right. And I would urge him to rethink that whole thing. On FARA, I'd like to come to Mr. Robinson. And I want to go back to something you said about the potentially vast coverage of this statute. I've got a lot of constituents who are Ukrainian Americans, and if they talk to Ukrainian family who urge them to come to Congress because of Putin's slaughter in their country, and to urge us in Congress to support the Ukrainian people with jets, for example, or anti-aircraft missiles, would they arguably be covered under FARA such that they would have to register?
Yes, I think this is the concern, that under both the language of the Act and also recent interpretation by the Justice Department, because they've been interpreting that word request so broadly, that they're covered under the language of the Act, and that's just a serious problem. And it's also came up, I think, when former military personnel who served with folks in Afghanistan when they were trying to flee the Taliban were making similar kinds of requests to Congress, and they could also easily get caught up in the language of FARA as well.
Well, as a nation of immigrants where people do have family and friends all over the world, I think that is a deeply problematic and ludicrous implication of an existing federal law. On the other hand, would you agree that if Vladimir Putin wants to employ people from his multi-million-dollar internet research agency to work to pump propaganda into the American system, say to promote his pro-Russian views, and pays people to do that, either working on internet messages or working on influencing TV celebrities like Tucker Carlson, that people who are directly on the payroll or receiving consultant money from a foreign government, people like that should have to register?
Yeah, no, so I think this is the question. The way that we've been advocating is to define foreign principal as foreign government or political party or those operating on their behalf, and to redefine the agency direction to a definition to make it much more acting at the direction and control. So that type of situation. So I think those are the types of situation where FARA could apply.
Go ahead. And the reason, the analogy I want to draw is to our campaign finance laws, where we don't allow Vladimir Putin or President Xi or Orban or any of the authoritarians around the world or any political parties or governments around the world to put money into our political system, right. Period. They're banned. And at the very least, if they're paying people to come and lobby here or to disseminate propaganda, disinformation in our society, we should know about it. That should be exposed. Do you have any problem with that idea?
No, I think that's right. I think the challenge on the propaganda side is how do you distinguish kind of the BBCs of the world from the RTTVs from the world? And right now, FARA doesn't do a good job of that. And I think that's something.
Yeah, but why do you need to distinguish it? BBC is actually paying people to work as reporters here. That should be disclosed.
Right.
What's the
and I think
problem with
right
that?
now the FCC has just adopted regulations requiring that kind of disclosure. And so I think the question is, what tool should Congress be using for that disclosure?
The gentleman's time has expired.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'll now go to the